Hello and welcome everyone to the Amateur Commentator. This is our Formula One section, and today we'll be reviewing the Australian Grand Prix qualifying session. Hi, Anshul.
Hi, Somat.
Yeah. Just give us a brief of what you felt about the qualifying, and then we can dig deep into what happened and how Charles Leclerc got yet another pole. So, yeah, let's start.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of things were expected. Red Bull and Ferrari being very close. That was something which was expected. But one thing which was not expected was Mercedes and McLaren, have improved a lot relative to how they performed in the first 2 races of the season. So it was very heartening to see, both the McLarens and Mercedes in the top 10, along with two Alpine. Fernando Alonso was, in fact, easily outperforming his teammate, and he was one of the most impressive drivers, I would say, in the qualifying session. Although it did not end very well for him, but if he would have been able to finish, I am expecting somewhere he would have been around P4 or P5 at least. But it was a very good day for him. It will be very interesting to see when he starts from P10 tomorrow. What is he will be able to extract out of the race. Coming back to the other drivers, I was a bit disappointed by Alfa Romeo. They were, Bottas was trying really well in the all the practice sessions, but he was not able to go to Q3. Saying that, Aston Martin, they both crashed during the practice session, and it was they were racing against the time. Stroll was able to come out for one lap, but that was all from him. And because of the red flag between a clash between him and Latifi, Vettel got a chance, but that was not enough for him to be able to secure a spot in Q2.
I was actually coming to that Q1. Initially, it looked like there may be some rain in the air, and then it started clearing up. We actually saw the sun coming in, and in Q2 and Q3, it was a bit of a trouble with the sun. But the trouble on the track was with Nicholas Latifi. He went into the gravel in the first instance, and in the second instance, can you just explain what happened? Because I just felt like somehow Latifi felt he was in race situation. He gave way to Stroll and then wanted to overtake him in the qualifying. What was going on there?
See, I know a lot of even I for that matter, we are blaming Latifi for the incident. But one thing we also need to understand that at that moment, roughly around 2 minutes were remaining in Q1, and Latifi was in the bottom 5 of the table. So, that his team might have been indicating him that he needs to get the outer lap fast so that, he can go for another fast lap. At least he can give it a shot. So once he allowed, a Stroll to pass ahead of him, then you also saw another Alfa Romeo coming back from the pack. So then that might be a moment where he decided, no, I'll go ahead and take, be in the front. But one thing, there was an issue is the instance of the turn where this happened. It was a right turn. The chicane was a right turn. So Stroll was also moving towards his right, and just being given the space from Latifi, he did not expected him to come back again because it was not a race. It was an outer lap for both of them. So that was a confusion, I guess. Not just about going ahead, but the 2 minute on the clock and Latifi being in the bottom 5. Well, probably all these factors combined together was an overall issue, I guess.
So so Nicholas Latifi's record of crashing out in qualifying and in races seems to be going pretty well. I don't know how long this will last, but Williams are bearing some cost for this one, I must say. And in fact, we saw the other Williams of Alex Albon also stopping at the end of Q1. I mean, they had to drag it off from the track, and it again does not look like a good start to a season by Williams.
Albon is someone who has been drafted to Williams setup in the season only, but still then he has been consistently outperforming his teammate. And the problem with Williams is, firstly, as you spoke about the budget, we have already seen 3 crashes from Latifi this season already. So the cost barrier is something which has already been pushed in the first 3 races only of the season, and we have 20 to 23 these races for the season. And the problem with Albon, that is something which we still need to hear back from the team, like what's the issue, whether it is from the power part or whether it is something the mechanical issues. But yes, Williams are clearly struggling. It would not be fair to say it, but they are probably at the bottom of the table for this season. That is what at least is visible right now. Saying that, McLaren have been able to turn around from first race to third race. Whether they have the capability, whether they have the finances, whether they have the other support staff to carry out that thing for them, that is something which will be interesting to see in the coming races.
Yeah, let's talk about another team that has been really impressive in this season in both the races in Saudi and Bahrain. Today, perhaps was not their best performance. Magnussen finishing out of Q2 and Mick Schumacher just making it to Q2 and then finishing on the 15th in the 15th position. Haas were looking like a pretty decent and strong team in Middle East, but it does seem they were lacking a bit of pace in Australia. Was it due to track, or do you think it is some car related?
Yeah. See, I'll not say that they were lacking pace, because when we are talking about Australian Grand Prix, the average speed is roughly around 150 miles per hour. So it is more in terms of the overall, all-round nature of the car. I would say they were still looking decent enough in terms of straight line speeds, but I would just say the nature of tracks in terms of how it has been remodeled and the additional amount of ground force which has been helping the other teams, that is something which is lacking in Haas. But come, the other races where we will see a decent amount of straight run, I would, consider the Haas will come back the way they were performing the first two races.
Let's move on to Q2. You talked about Valtteri Bottas and him not qualifying to Q3. This is, I guess, for the first time since he started driving for Mercedes that he has not qualified into Q3. He has not gone into Q3. So that was a bit of a surprising result, considering the times he was clocking in both Q1 and Q2. To kind of finally get out of Q2 was a bit surprising. So what's your view about Alfa Romeo? How do you think will they be in the points? Zhau we have seen perform decently well in both the races. Nothing spectacular, but he has kind of maintained his pace. He has finished both the races. So what are you expecting from Alfa Romeo this time around tomorrow?
See, Bottas was doing pretty well in all the practice sessions, and even in Q1 he was probably around top 6, top 7 at some point of time. So the timing which he clocked, where he was kicked out of Q2, was something which was a bit surprising for me. But saying that, all in the first two races of the season, McLaren were not up to the mark. Alonso, for that matter, even when he had to stop last race, and the race before that also, there were some issues with him. So Alpine were also facing some issues. We had some issues with Merck as well. So, but currently when we are seeing all the top 5 teams, they are relatively much in a better position in terms of where they are as compared to the first two races. It will be important to see how Alfa Romeo will be able to perform in that scenario. Because yes, they were performing well, but we do also need to understand that Bottas is also in his second power unit, because of which he needed to stop last race so that he do not incur penalty. So if he has the pace and he is probably competing in the top 10, will it be enough in terms of what the car is offering to them? It's a very important question to see tomorrow how they are going away.
Yeah, in Q2, the highlight for me was the way sun came about and everyone had to change their visor. And we saw one clip of I guess Carlos Sainz's visor cam, and Ferrari were facing some porpoising issue, and then the sun coming in, I was amazed that he was able to see anything and finish that lap. So yeah, I mean, the visibility was insane at that point of time.
It's very important for Ferrari to figure out that particular issue, because when we are talking about all the 3 Grand Prix now, there has not been that many incidences or that many corners, or the circuits has not been too insane to manage the issues. But if the proposing issue is still continuing, there will be instances in different circuits where he might just make a mistake because of that, because he will not be able to see the complete vision in front of him. So it will be very disastrous for Sainz. So that is very important for Ferrari, especially to figure out what's happening in his car.
Yeah, talking about signs and luck and whether it's disastrous or not, he had a pretty bad luck this time around in Q3. Q3 started off well. Both the Red Bulls clocking good times. I think at one point Perez was 1,000th of a second ahead of Max, and then the two Ferraris. Then Lewis did a good lap, but it was Fernando Alonso's lap that looked pretty decent. The second sector was violet. It was purple, and he was looking like he could be in the top two, top three, and then he crashes out. And that not only hampers his own time, he finishes P10, but that also meant that Sainz, who was just milliseconds away from clocking his first time in Q3, couldn't also finish. And just take us through what happened with Alonso, because he looked pretty nailed on to be in top two rows actually.
Yeah, he was driving pretty well, and the pace was very easily visible. I think just before the crash, when he was taking that turn, he was trying to downshift his gear from 6 to 5 to 4 and 3. But I think his gearbox got stuck, and it got stuck at 4, and he was not able to downshift. That's why when he was taking the turn, he carried additional amount of speed, which he would not have liked it. And at that moment, at that turn also, he also carried some amount of grass from the corner. Because of the speed he had to take the longer route. And I think that was something which contributed. I'm not sure whether that's just a driver mistake or that is something which had to do internally with how the Alpine was working. But
yeah, that part of the track has been redone as well, I think.
Yeah.
We saw a couple of mistakes there as well. Yeah.
So overall, I completely agree. Sainz, Alonso have not been very lucky, at least in Q3. But one thing also, the same thing happened with Verstappen as well. You talked about, Perez was ahead by 1,000th of a second, but that particular lap, Verstappen had a big, break in the final corner. So that might have contributed to some of the delay. So I still feel, Sainz, Verstappen, and Alonso, along with Perez and Leclerc, these would have been the top 5 if everything would have gone without any hiccups. But it's still very close. Red Bull and Ferrari, they are very close. It's very easy to identify P1, P2, P2, P3, P4 in qualifying. But come the race scenario, I think it will be very interesting race to see between the top two teams.
How do you think Mercedes performed? Hamilton and Russell. It looked like there may have been some improvement, but they were still off pace. And how do you see them finishing the race? They were lucky, I would say, in Bahrain, with both the Red Bulls crashing out and Mercedes getting into points. They would have got into points, but not that high. Even a podium finish as well for them. Do you see them improving before, let's say, the summer break? Did you see some signs of improvement today?
I saw some signs of improvement, and I also saw some signs of a strategy in terms of whatever they have. Especially in Q3, they came up with a plan that they will need at least 3, outer lap to warm up their tires. Then they'll take 2 shots to get the best laps. But my only problem and a question to you as well here is, when McLaren is also running at the same, using the same engine and Mercedes running in the same engine, why are we seeing stark difference when someone like Lando Norris is able to clock the times? Why we cannot see the same times be clocked up by, say, like Lewis Hamilton or Russell?
I'm actually not sure, and I'm pretty surprised with the way McLaren have turned things around. And it's not just Norris; even Ricciardo looked quite good today. Not the best of timings, but he was pretty stable, considering that they looked horrendous in the first race. The way they have performed, the way McLaren has performed in this in the qualifying, even in the pre-practices, although Norris was carrying pretty less fuel when he topped FP3, but it's still performing much better than what Mercedes are performing at. And for some reason, I think we have spoken about it as well, and I feel that Lewis Hamilton needs to up his game a bit. I mean, it sounds odd to say that someone who has won 7 World Championship, who is arguably the best racer in the world in terms of numbers, in terms of statistics as well, not giving his 100%, but I feel that
Yeah.
Lewis needs to up his game a bit. Russell, I think he's getting a hang of the car. It's not at his best. It's a sad thing that we are seeing George Russell in a Mercedes that is at its weakest in the last 8 years, last 10 years. I think his ceiling as a driver is also pretty good. So coming to the question of why McLaren are performing and Mercedes are not, I actually don't see a lot of difference between both their timings. It's just that McLaren have been a bit consistent. Mercedes, although you said that they have been coming up with the strategy, 3 laps, 3 out laps, so that they can warm up their tires and all. But I felt a lot of the like twice or thrice I felt that Lewis and Russell both were on their hot laps and then suddenly pulled it back. So I don't know what happened, or I may be wrong in that, but I think
More than pulling back, also there were, as you mentioned, there were some amateur mistakes, I would say. One of the laps which Lewis Hamilton, was doing, he actually turned his wheel a bit ahead as compared to when it should have been done. I'm not sure whether that's just a function of a new layout for the circuit, or whether it's something which has to do that he's not that much confidence with the car. So that begs me the question: like, is Lewis Hamilton great and he won all those championships just because of the car, or we still are, the days will still come where we'll see the best of him even without the best of the car.
I think that's a larger like question on who is the greatest of all. In terms of numbers, it's obviously Lewis has the greatest most number of wins and poles and everything, and championship is equal with Schumacher. But in terms of quality, in terms of how he is no doubt one of the greatest of all time. Whether he is the greatest or not, maybe it's a debate for another time. Let's move on to Sergio Perez and Red Bull. It's almost twice in 3 races that Perez has been driving better than Max, at least in the qualifyings. Although Max at the end of the day in the last lap itself outqualified Sergio, but for most part it looked like Sergio is extremely comfortable with that car. What do you have to say about that?
I think it's like the wand which we saw in Harry Potter. The Red Bull car is answering to Sergio Perez this season. He has not been facing any issue. He looks very comfortable in the car. First race he was a bit unlucky. Second race he was a bit unlucky. I'm sure the unlucky part of the nature of the game will run out at some point of time, and the results will be based on how he's performing in the circuits. So I'm 100% confident, somewhere down the line, whether it may be the Australian Grand Prix or whether it may be Canada or somewhere else, we will see Sergio Perez, outperforming Verstappen and probably standing P1 or P2 ahead of Verstappen in the final race, not just in the qualifying.
Yeah, I think it was a great night for both of them. In fact, starting at 2 and 3, and the fact that let's move to Ferrari as well, and the fact that Carlos Sainz is nowhere in the top two rows. Does this actually give Red Bull a big chance of like getting into the P1 and P2? With 2 of their cars in the first 2 rows, and with Ferrari having 1 and the second in 5th row, what do you think? How do you think the race will go, and what happened with Carlos Sainz actually?
I think Carlos Sainz was a bit unlucky before Alonso's crash. That lap was particular. The lap which would have gotten him probably P3, P4, or P2 based on whatever the time he was clocking. But the last lap was something which, again, he only had 1 lap to counteract the times which were already posted on the board ahead of him. So the time pressure was also on him. So that was something which was easily visible. That's part and parcel of the game. Some races he will have the luck over other players. But saying that, in terms of the race, the first corner will be very important. If Verstappen is able to, overtake Leclerc in, say, first or second or third in first 3-4 laps, and Perez is just behind Leclerc, that will give Red Bull a very good advantage. But if Red Bull is actually waiting for the first pit stop, whether trying to undercut them or overcut them, that will actually allow Sainz enough time to bridge the gap. Because all the drivers which are ahead of Sainz, I'm not sure if everyone has the pace to stop him. Of all the cars who are there in the top 10, probably apart from Red Bull, Alonso was the only driver who was looking that he could actually match Sainz from pace to pace. If he is able to overtake Sainz from 10 and he's at 8, that is an entirely different thing. But whoever are there between Perez and Sainz, I'm not sure if Red Bull will wait for the first pit stop. That will give them an advantage. They'll have to make the move early.
Yeah, I think. But looking at all the three pre-practices, looking at the way qualifying goes, I think Charles Leclerc has done brilliantly well. I mean, his final lap was almost 0.3 of a second better than Max Verstappen in qualifying.
Yeah.
And although Max did say that he was not feeling comfortable with the car and there are certain issues, and maybe during the race it will be a bit more consistent and they will get better results. But Charles Leclerc now almost 3 times in 3 races has looked the real deal. So before we close, do you see this one being a Max Verstappen versus Charles Leclerc season, or do you think that Perez and Sainz have a chance? Do you see a late surge from Mercedes? What are your expectations?
I'm not sure about the late surge of the Mercedes, but I'm absolutely sure that drivership championship is not just between 2 players here. We are at least 4 players, both Ferraris and Red Bull. But the most important thing for tomorrow's race is we have not seen cars on the hard tires. So Pirelli has come up with C2, C3 and C5 for this particular race. And most of the teams have utilized their quota of the soft tires. Only a few of the teams have enough tires between medium and soft tires compound to last the entire race. It will be very interesting to see how the cars will behave, especially during the time of the day where the track temperature will be relatively low. And we saw even the softer tires were taking a lot of time for the teams like Mercedes to, build up the sufficient amount of heat on tire. So that is something which will be very interesting to see tomorrow.
So let's wait for the race. I am hoping that Ferrari have a good day and Leclerc gets another win. He has won all his races from poles, so maybe a good sign. Would be looking to cheer Sergio Perez as well. So thank you, Anshul. Let's meet again after the race tomorrow for our views, and have a great day. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.